All right, hello friends. We are back with video number 2. So last time, y'all know how I was telling y'all about showing y'all my finger. Well, this time I got new problems. Like, whole nail came off. It's okay. It's been like 4 weeks since I had these babies on, so they've been doing me good. So I was riding in my car and trying to think about what I wanted my next video to be about, and I thought about blogs of mine that have been really popular, and one of those was the blog that I wrote last year on my anniversary, just about a lot of the things that I had been experiencing and just what I was thinking and going through, and just a fight that had been at that time. So this blog was called What Now, posted on September 4th, 2017, so my anniversary, but I wrote it on my birthday. And I started out talking about how the blessings of God, or the blessings of God by way of materialistic things and progression by the world standards, are no indication of like where your relationship is with God. And so I mentioned 3 things in this blog that I feel like God's blessings are meant to do. And I put that caveat on it because when you look at who God says is blessed in the Bible, he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn, not blessed are those who have all these things. And that's what makes them blessed, but that's another topic. The 3 things I mentioned are that he gives you his blessings to help you advance his kingdom, to expose your character so that you can become more like him, and then to draw out your heart. So I talked about how if someone were to take a look at my life from the outside, it looks like, man, you've got it all. I got my degree, I found my job, make decent money, getting my master's degree for free, got my husband, got my house, you know. So it can be like, dang, all of these things are just falling into place for you. But I'm just like, yeah, but God knows what you need to test your heart. And so a lot of the blog was focused on just a lot of the rough times that I've experienced in my marriage, and the ways that that's exposed how far my character really is from God. So in the hard times that Jonathan and I've had, what I've found to be true for myself is that if it's not going the way that I envisioned or the way that I expect it to be, if I'm not feeling happy, if I'm not feeling great, if I'm not feeling joyful, okay, well, maybe this isn't God's plan. And that's interesting though, because even in the Bible, as it talks about being a Christian, it talks about suffering and how, you know, in order to share in Christ's blessings and his glory, we also have to share in his suffering. So the fact that we as Christians can think, oh, because I serve this big mighty God who can do all things, he should be changing my situation and that type of thing. And it's like, no, not necessarily. If that's the case, then he probably wouldn't have put Jesus on the cross if it was all about making us feel good. So just as I was talking about this, and I mentioned in this blog about kind of having my escape plan to Tennessee. So there's just been rough days. I think some of the root of the things that we have experienced was honestly just things in our character that were there all along, except it wouldn't have been exposed except by being married. So we can be in relationships of other kinds with friends and with family, and because we don't have to see them all the time, and because we can go our separate ways at some point, then our character wasn't exposed. But once you're in the house with somebody and you cannot leave and you are called to work it out, to be reconciled, to honor God, then it's like, well, we gonna go. And we have just found our pride getting in the way of a lot of things, not wanting to be the first to apologize, always pointing the finger at who's wrong in what situation, thinking about our feelings, fighting for what we feel like is right. If I'm asking you for this, then you should be doing it because it's gonna, you know, make me feel better, or for me personally, make me feel more secure. And if I'm not getting them things, it's like, well, you ain't right, you know, and then sort of making demands to make sure I get my way. And another lesson that I've learned is that I've just seen that I've seen the limits that my love can have, that, you know, if I feel like I've gone to a certain point with you and it ain't being reciprocated, or you making me look foolish, or, you know, I'm putting all this out and I'm not getting back what it is that I feel like I should get, then, you know, here's where that stops. And so the really hurtful thing to God about that is that he would never do that to me. He would never say, okay, Shell, I'm wiping my hands with you. Okay, Shell, the sacrifice of my son should have been enough. Okay, I forgave that sin last time, I cut you off now. You know, even the Bible says, you know, forgive 7 times 7. If it means that much, which is him just saying as many times as you need to forgive. But I found that, like, yeah, nah, you know, when I feel like I've forgiven enough times, or I've bored with you enough times, or okay, now you just out here being foolish, done, you know. And nothing about that is Christ's character, is anything like God. So saw that exposed, and then just wanting this out, but I kept having to come back to, man, I made a commitment before God. And, you know, wanting this out was because it was uncomfortable, more uncomfortable than anything I had ever experienced in my life, because, again, so many things have fallen into place. So now that this thing ain't working out, I'm like, hold up, but we did it the right way. You know, like, isn't that supposed to be a recipe for success? And I honestly do feel like a lot of it was also about just a spiritual battle, you know, because we both got into this marriage trusting and believing that this was absolutely God's plan, and that he had something greater for the both of us through this. And so I feel like immediately spiritual warfare kicked in, and it's like, okay, if you are truly trying to be about God's business, then let's see how committed you truly are. What if you look foolish? You know, because I kept thinking, like, man, this isn't looking the way or feeling the way or going the way that I expected it to go. Now I'm a little crazy. You know, I always wrote all these blogs and had all these posts and all these different things. Now I'm worried about self-preservation and what are people going to think and that type of thing. So there I am, exposed again, not concerned about, can I stand before God, you know, trying to find a way out of my marriage, and not thinking about how am I going to stand before God, having made that decision, but what would people think? So again, heart exposed, and it was all just rooted in selfishness, not because things were going on that was just like so unimaginable that I really needed to find a way out, but just not being willing to fight, not being willing to push, not being willing to persevere and do the things that I stood before God and said that I would do. And so I also had to come, and I keep just referencing the blog on my other phone, but also just thinking about, like, okay, if I were to go through with the things that I'm thinking, okay, life as a single is also going to have its own struggles. You know, I'm thinking, well, I ain't have to deal with these same things, but that wasn't going to fix anything, because the reality is that the issue is my heart, not the scenario that I'm in. The scenario that I'm in is only drawing out what's already there. So until I nip that at the root, I'm going to continue to run into situations that draw it out, because it's still there. So there's no denying that. And so also just saying different insecurities that I had. I talk about feeling like I'm not enough. I talk about fears of infidelity. I talk about whether or not, you know, feeling like, can I do this for the rest of my life? Is this going to be this hard? And all of that was coming out of my own strength. Can I do this? Am I enough? Am I gonna feel better about this situation? Not like, God, you have to help me get through this. God, you be enough for me. God, you sustain me. God, you give me what I need. But just really depending on my own ability. And then I talk a little bit about buying a home and how that brought out different insecurities, because I'm like, man, I don't want to drop all this money. I want my, you know, good nest right here to feel comfortable. You know, what happens if this happens? And, you know, putting myself into all these situations in my mind that were just not true, or could happen whether we bought a house or not. But again, just showing, like, okay, I see where your heart is. I see where you're storing up treasures. I see where your riches lie. And so the hardest part for me has been, how do I rest? Because life is gonna ebb and flow, ebb and flow, ebb and flow. That's not gonna change. It's just a part of the cycle. It happens like that for the reasons that I've stated. So how can I be like a tree planted, like the Bible talks about? How can I be that tree that when the wind storms, when the wind comes, when the storms come, when the fire comes, that I can just be solid? And I realized that all of that had to be about faith in God. It had to be about trusting God. It had to be about security in God, not what Jonathan is going to be able to do for me, or how Jonathan is going to change to make me feel better, or what I feel like when I wake up tomorrow. But what does the Bible say? And I think at the end of the day, heaven is the goal, not even happiness here on earth. And one of the best pieces of advice, yet hardest pieces of advice to take, is the constant reminder that marriage is meant to make you holy, not make you happy. And I think if I could tell singles anything, is that, like, I blow it up in big letters, put it on your mirror or wherever you need to put it. Marriage is meant to make you holy. Marriage is meant to purify you for God. Marriage is meant to help you stand before God pure, looking as much like his son as you can. Marriage is not about how happy you are. Unfortunately, nowhere in the Bible do you see it's, let's grant this thing so that you can be happy all the days of your life. And I think when we in our society think about marriage, that's what we think about. Oh, I get somebody to do life with. I get somebody to share all these experiences with. Not I get somebody to build up the kingdom with. Not I get somebody to grow with. Not I get somebody who's going to show me myself so that, I can be a better person in the future. We don't necessarily go into marriage like, can't wait for the hard times. Can't wait for the conflict. Can't wait when I can't stand him, but we got to sleep in the same bed. Like, that's just not what we think about. But those are real, and I just think we don't prepare people enough for what's real. Like, yeah, you're going to learn. You're going to talk about your finances and coming together and all of these different things. But, like, what about absolutely pleasing God in every situation? And that was just a conviction that I didn't have. To the extent that I thought I did, was in everything please God. In everything, what does the Bible say? In everything be upright. In everything you do your part, even if he ain't doing his part. And that's just hard to really wanna leave out. So yeah, that's just a pretty quick snippet. Hopefully Jonathan and I can do a video together one day so that he and I can just kind of talk about some of the things, like share different experiences from our points of view around what that has looked like over time. But yeah, I just wanted to leave people with, like, that time has been, and we are still in a lot of ways rebuilding and figuring out and putting practicals into place to help. For my single women out there, like, every phase of life is gonna come with its own struggles. Being single is gonna come with different struggles. Being married is gonna come with different struggles. Don't waste each phase looking for the next, because what God is wanting you to do is grow where you are to prepare you for the next stage, whatever that may look like. It may not be what society tells us that natural progression is, but the hope is that you're most fruitful in the stage that you are for him. There's no way that you can bring any more to anybody else's life when there's parts of your heart that just continuously don't look like Jesus in areas. So that should be the goal, and the focus is, what is God showing me in my heart so that I can look more like Jesus, and then I can give a true gift to somebody, and nobody's gonna be perfect. Nobody's gonna, be everything to their spouse. But if that's one thing I could tell my single self, it'd be that, prepare your character, prepare your heart for that man, more than anything. And for other people who are married, I'm sure that y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. For people who have been married, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. That it's work. You have to invest in this thing. When I think about people who have been married 30 and 40 years, I'm like, yeah, it's because they put in work, not because it's easy. Like, there's a reason the divorce rate is so high in America as it is because it's easy to chuck up the deuces and just be like, I don't have to do this. You know, I thought that too. I'm better off by myself, buddy. I can do bad all by myself, sir. And that's fine. I can, you know, but the heart has to be what's pleasing to God. So I pray that this inspires and speaks to somebody. Already thinking about what I want my next video to be. And I'm thinking that I'm going to do, I don't know if it'll be a series or just a video, but on discipleship. Is that term still relevant today? How does that come into play? Is it outdated? How does discipleship compare with Christianity? Are they one and the same? So I think that that'll be a pretty cool, fun topic to dive into. I have strong feelings about that. So I'm sure you'll see that come out in that video. So stay tuned. If you have anything that you want to hear about, hit me up and let me know through my different social media accounts. If you have any blogs in particular that you'd like to hear more about, just let me know. All right, until next time, people.